Hello, this is Angela, and welcome to my channel, Angie the ENTJ. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. Today is going to be a response video to a comment I received from someone who goes by the name of Media Circus, and he commented on my video, a previous video that is titled, "Do you know your worth? Everyone else does." Okay, and so whenever I decide to respond to a comment is because that I can see a broader issue on hand most times. And so I will read Media Circus's comment. I will give my specific response to him in particular, and afterwards I will speak to what I perceive to be the bigger issue at hand. So let's begin with this comment. So he starts off saying, "I understand a woman wanting a man that is stoic and mature and is respected." So, okay, that's good that you understand this, Media Circus. So let me go on. "But a guy also wants to let his guard down. Having fun isn't always mature or look cool, maybe even." So, okay, wait. What I'm gathering is that letting your guard down means, it kind of appears as if you're saying you're putting on an act to be stoic, mature, and respected. So, letting your guard down is kind of like a way of saying, "Oh, I can stop the act." So there is a concern there. So he further goes on to say, "An artist like myself is often misunderstood or thought of as being autistic." That's interesting. Okay. So let's continue to read. "But the reality is I was never in the room. High school, all personalities are in the room, and everyone identifies with one of those personalities, but I wasn't even there." That's interesting. And for you to say that, that lets me know that everyone, girls and boys, men and women alike, picked up on that vibe that you were putting out there. Okay. So in the last sentence, he says, "I'm the frayed wire that never got plugged into anything. I just bounce around making sparks." Okay, well, Media Circus, a frayed wire is dangerous, especially if it has sparks coming out of it. Okay, so that was his statement, his comment. And before I go any further, please be sure to like the video and subscribe. And I don't mind you using my concepts and my content, but just give credit too for those of you that are doing that. I see you out there, okay? So let me go back to the commentary, okay? So first, I don't know Media Circus's age. However, if I were to guess, I would place him either in his late teens, no older than his mid-20s. I could be wrong, but that's what I perceive by reading what he stated. And I'm going to assume that this is his age range based on what I gathered from his comment, and that he's genuine and he's just trying to figure some things out. So the first thing that I will say to Media Circus is that you are what you attract. A fire can either heat a home or burn it down. You described yourself as a frayed wire, and I feel that it has less to do with your artistry and more to do with you needing to learn how to set priorities in your life. There are plenty of artists who have made fortunes by directing their creative energy into their craft, okay? There are plenty of famous comedians whose family live off of them being silly, goofy, and cracking jokes for a living. So what you need to understand is that nature has provided all living beings with instincts that sense danger and react, and they are going to react in a way that is going to preserve their own life. So if you incite, if you do something or you behave in a way or you say something that will incite a person's self-preservation instincts, then that's what's going to happen. Because the outcome will be at a bare minimum, they will distance themselves away from you. Or in some situations, they can even attack you and then push you away. This is because you're being perceived as someone who may risk their life, either physically, depending on what it is you're doing, or maybe not in a physical way, but financially, psychologically, emotionally, or in any other way. So if you want to be respected, regarded as trustworthy, if you want to attract people who will enjoy your presence, then you have to realize that you need to actually be trustworthy. You have to actually be an enjoyable person to be around. You have to become what you want to attract. No one enjoys being close to a frayed wire that is throwing sparks at them and burning them. So when it comes to art, you can be that quote unquote frayed wire and let your creativity soar by all means. And I hope that it brings you success, However, if you want to use fire in a relationship, if you want to use that kind of energy in the context of a relationship, it will have to be more like a fireplace that's warming a home. You have to be warm and stable and enjoyable and approachable, So you can still have your fire in that way, but it'll be like using it in an appropriate way, right? So be like, you can be your frayed wire when it comes to your art, but when it comes to relationships, you have to be a warm hearth. You have to be a warm fireplace. Okay. So thanks for your comment. And let me go into now where I see a bigger issue at hand. So we have to remember, everyone, that toxic patriarchy has not just affected the feminine exclusively. Now, before I go any further, it definitely affected girls and women the most. And the issues that we face as a result of it are the most obvious. We have collectively faced child marriages, teen pregnancies, being trafficked, being victims of stealthing. Stealthing, for those who don't know what that is, it is a type of reproductive coercion that happens when the dude slips off the condom or pokes holes into it. And this has resulted into unwanted pregnancies. We've been victims of domestic violence, you name it, being unalived by intimate partners, and the list goes on. So the feminine is the obvious victim of toxic patriarchy, without a doubt. However, the devastating impact on boys and young men in particular is often not as noticeable, due in part because the automatic assumption is that toxic patriarchy benefits men exclusively. This is why I say when I see a comment like this, where it is respectful and it seems like a genuine attempt to decipher things from a different perspective, I don't mind responding to it. Or if I see that it will help a lot of people at once, I will even go so far as to do a video. This is because some are genuinely ignorant to how patriarchy has harmed them and may have been brainwashed. But even though they're brainwashed, they may feel like, hey, something is just kind of off, and they can't put their fingers on it. And on this channel, I won't punish the ignorant because of their true and genuine ignorance. I prefer to greet them with wisdom and empower them to become wise as well. However, make no mistake about it, though, we will get after the obstinate because of their obstinance. But as far as the people that are genuinely ignorant, this is a safe space for you to get a different perspective than the one that you may have been brainwashed into. So there are a lot of people out here who appear to be like a media circus. They are genuinely ignorant, but they are not attempting to be stubborn, and they are genuinely trying to see the light of the truth. So with media circus in particular, I think what may have touched a nerve with him in my previous video is that I encourage women to make sure they are not dating someone who is a headache to their own parents. Here's a sample clip from that video. Let's watch it briefly, and then I'll come back. Now let's go back to that woman. You're that woman. You're seeing all these women and their adult offspring, their adult children are doing well. And here you are with this overgrown teenager. Okay? He's immature. And everybody asks, they already know what's going on, but they're going to ask anyway because they just want to be nice. They're hoping you'll surprise them, So how's so-and-so your son doing? That woman. And you know what she says? Oh, he's quote unquote still trying to find his way. He's trying this, he's doing that. Never a straight answer. Now bear in mind, all of these women, their adult children are probably in their early to mid 30s. So this woman is embarrassed. Okay? So in their world, he's working some $50,000 a year job. Okay? Not enough money. Not enough money for himself. Certainly not enough money for a family. Okay? And occasionally he has to borrow money from mom and dad to help make his $1,300 a month rent on average. And he comes over once a week under the guise of visiting mom and dad. But really, it's a way to eat dinner in order to save money on his groceries. Okay? So this is the kind of situations that you see in other communities. All right, I'm back. First, let me tell you that a lot of young men have been brainwashed into becoming mooks. M-O-O-K-S, mooks, okay? So what is a mook? Well, let me explain. And before I go any further, I don't know Media Circus, so I'm not calling him a mook or any other name. I understand at times the troubling influence that a combination of social factors and media influences have on teen boys and young men, and that encourages them to become and behave like mooks. So what is a mook? Mooks are a common character trope in theater who is basically a clown that does not take life seriously. Another word for mook is minion. So I will use the terms interchangeably. It's actually easier for me to say minion than it is for me to say a mook. So you'll hear me say minion more than mook, but they're the same thing. So a minion is mentally stuck in adolescence, even though he may chronologically be an adult. So his brain is acting like a child, even though his body is functioning like an adult. Okay? And that's something that I spoke about in the previous video, but I didn't go into as much details as I'm going into right now. A minion is someone who's often perceived as being cool by other boys and young men. So there's an incentive for them to behave this way, right? So why am I bringing up the minion or the mook? Well, Media Circus made some key statements. One in particular was when he stated, quote, having fun isn't always mature or even, look cool even, right? So, and that's the end quote on that. So the key phrases point at a lack of maturity and letting down one's guard as, it makes it appear as that is looking cool. In contrast to being respectful. Respectful is respectful, whether you're cool or not. That's the reality. You can be cool, you can be uncool, but if you're respectful, that's going to shine through any of those circumstances. So what benefit is the mook or the minion to toxic patriarchy? Okay, well, there are plenty of benefits. One is that the mook is usually in the prime of his life. So he can become a form of cheap labor that can be used over a long period of time. Additionally, the mook is generally unattractive to most women. So this lessens the dating competition. And since minions tend to be adverse to education, this almost guarantees that older males will have a legion of unaccomplished younger males to order around, to do his bidding, to be his cheap labor, to be his cannon fodder, and so forth. So I have an excerpt that was written by a college professor whose name is James Broadbeer, or Jim T. Broadbeer, okay? And the title of this excerpt is called Killing the Mook and the Midriff, okay? And the term killing here is in reference to the imagery of the mook and the midriff, or the mechanism that creates them, not the actual person themselves, for my naysayers here. And it's titled Killing the Mook and the Midriff. The midriff is another personality referring to young women, but our focus here is young men for the time being. So Jim Broadbeer, at the time that he wrote this article, was an associate professor of health education at Illinois State University. And in this excerpt, he stated, "The mook and the midriff are metaphors for young men and women typically portrayed in the media. They are shallow, self-absorbed characters inordinately focused on physical appearance and personal satisfaction." Okay, so I'm skipping over a lot. So further down in the article, Professor Jim Broadbeer stated that the mook is a metaphor for the young male characteristically portrayed on MTV, at that particular time. He's brash, rude, sexually obsessed and aggressive, and completely apathetic about anything beyond his own entertainment and self-aggrandizement. He is, in short, a gross caricature of an adolescent. So let me skip down a little bit further. He further says, and although I skipped a little bit towards the end of what I'm stating, towards the end of this excerpt, he says, but exaggerations have a base in reality. So what he's saying here is that the mook, or the minion, is a caricature, is an exaggeration of an adolescent, but exaggerations have its basis in reality, okay? And everyone, this is why I brought up the caricature of the mook. So let me continue to read. Troubling as it may be, some of the mook is present in college men, many college men, and not just at spring break. So what Professor Jim Broadbeer was saying here is that you see the antics of the mook, which kind of speaks to what Media Circus was saying earlier about some things that are cool may not look mature, right? And when you go and you see footage from spring break, oftentimes it shows college students in particular engaging in behaviors that are not conducive to being healthy, responsible, and so on and so forth. And this is more than just going and having fun. This is engaging in sometimes harmful behaviors. People drink to excess. It's known for having a lot of anonymous encounters. Okay. So whether you're respectful or not, danger is danger. You understand what I'm saying? So that's where Professor Jim Broadbeer is saying that, they're not just showing this during spring break. They're showing it on the college campuses. And these are the people that the society is going to have to depend on to occupy professions where you can't have that mentality, right? So moving along. So now that we have a basic understanding of the mook in particular, along with a little bit about the midriff, the type of mook described here, Jim Broadbeer's excerpt, to me appears to be like the common, obnoxious Andrew Tate wannabe follower. Okay. And this is when the reason why he would be a mook that's following Andrew Tate is because he's undateable. So he finds himself on that platform, right? However, there are other types of mooks, such as the socially isolated version who typically has bad hygiene and lives in his mom's basement. See, I have an uncanny ability to see multiple sides of a situation, y'all, simultaneously. Hence my name, Angie, the ENTJ. ENTJ is my personality type. So I believe, based on data and observations, that men like media circus are having a hard time understanding why, for instance, he may be seen as undateable by women or is having a hard time fitting within society in general because he has social cues. Let's take a look at it from this perspective for a moment, okay? You have someone who has social cues telling him that it is all right to remain a perpetual adolescent. I'm not calling you one, media circus. I'm just using this situation as an example. Okay? So you have this person in a society that tolerates this spring break-like behavior from young men in spaces beyond spring break, beaches. Okay? So it can seem as though it's normal for a man to remain emotionally stunted to the degree that he is deemed unattractive by women. In other words, he's a dim-witted, fill-in-the-blank, numbskulled mook or minion. So additionally, his immature behavior is also accepted within his male social circles. So society is tolerating him behaving like this, right? Not only that, around his close friends, it's accepted as being cool. So not only is being the mook or the minion normalized, it's also incentivized, right? Because that helps with male bonding. So all of this is a recipe for the many young men that we have today who went through their childhood, went through puberty and into early adulthood, whose inappropriate ways have always been tolerated and seen as cool. So what happens with these boys, or in many cases, men, grown men, who think that it's a cool thing to appear as a numbskulled minion? What happens when they become interested in dating? What happens when this person who plays video games all day long, doesn't bathe but maybe once a week, his breath is strong enough to wake a bear out of hibernation, he still has cartoon character bedroom sheets and blankets, he may even be wearing, cartoon character underwear. Some of these people may be oppositional and defiant. Okay, you get my point. They rebel and they don't accept responsibilities. Every time their parents told them to do a chore, they argued and it became a days-long argument. Or maybe they're not oppositional defiant vocally, but, they withdraw into their room, never to come out. What happens when they get the sudden desire and urge to go on dates? You see where I'm coming from? When we look at things from this perspective, can you see how a person can land here? Okay. Well, when this type of person goes on to engage in activities that are going to lead to them dating and marrying and mating and procreating, and this person accepted everywhere else, now they're being totally rejected. It's something that they haven't had to deal with before. So can you see how some men in this situation will feel that there is something wrong with women who are saying no to them? Which is one of the major reasons why we have backed up manosphere red pillars yapping at us, and some of them even committing mass tragedies. Okay? I'm not defending them at all. I'm just opening everybody's eyes to how can this be. Okay, so those are the Andrew Tate type of manosphere, Kevin Samuels type of manosphere followers, right? Or they can be what I'm perceiving about media circus. Someone who feels like he just does not fit in and he's sitting on the outskirts. He may be becoming depressed and not understanding why so many people are quote unquote being mean to him, or why women's standards are quote unquote so high. He may not be a red pillar, but just doesn't get why things are not working out for him. Okay. So in patriarchal societies, many boys and men are completely oblivious and don't realize that they have been set up to fail in one way or another by other men, and typically those who are older and are competing with them. And because there is a tendency within patriarchal societies to turn women into the scapegoats as a remedy to address societal issues, this becomes a convenient way for such a society to avoid directly confronting their own issues. So these young men, with all of this going on, some of them don't even realize that they have been misguided into becoming dim-witted mooks who can't compete either in academia, dating, jobs, sports, you name it. The U.S. is not the only place that finds themselves awash with a lot of lonely men. There are men, for an example, in Japan that are known as hikikomori, and they isolate themselves away from the society because they feel like they don't measure up. They are rejected by women and they cannot compete against the other men. So they withdraw from work and school for months and years at a time. It is not uncommon to find hikikomori men who have been deceased for a very long time and their remains begin to break down. And it's not until their neighbors call the authorities due to the odor that they realize that the hikikomori have expired a long time ago. So in my humble opinion, the hikikomori are a type of mook. So what we have today are two types of personalities within the mooks, two main personalities. So on one hand, we have the angry red pillars that are the extroverted mook, and they are a serious threat. Then we have the depressed hikikomori type, who are, in my humble opinion, the introverted version of a mook, and having either form sprouting up within the society all around us is not good. So this is what I have to say to media circus and the types that feel like they are not fitting in. Listen, there are some realities that exist whether we like it or not. For instance, gravity is a reality. Sunburn is a reality. Rain falling and flooding is a reality. Whether I like it or not, whether I agree with it or not, it's not going to stop. Most of us here in the U.S. have a car. If you had $1 million right now, and I'm talking to Media Circus or anybody like him, if you had $1 million right now, and you had to use some form of it to purchase a car, chances are high that it will be a new car and it will be something that is going to be a higher end purchase. Why? Because the reality is that most people are not going to invest money into a lemon or an unreliable vehicle when they have the money to purchase something not only that is reliable, but something that is new and something that they actually would like to have. So that's reality. So the reason why I'm explaining this to you, sharing the reality of gravity and snow and ice and all that kind of stuff, is because the reality is that in order to attract someone, you have to be attractive. Yes. And this is especially true when you're living in a reality where there is a global shortage of women. There are more than 70 million excess boys and men globally. And what does this mean? If you were to take every woman and girl on earth and pair her up with each with a boy. So you take one girl, pair her up with a boy. Take one woman, pair her up with a man. And you did that for every single woman on the planet, regardless of her orientation. Okay. There would be more than 70 million boys and men that are left unpaired. Now, that's just a basic way of looking at it. Now, when you talk about how many of those women and girls are going to be heterosexual, then it reduces the dating pool even further. And when I say for girls and women, I'm assuming boys and girls that'll grow up and date each other 20 years from now. That's where I'm coming from with that, okay? So the lack of women are obvious in places like China and India, that practice female infanticide and gender selective abortion. Okay. However, in places like the US, Canada, Australia, the UK, or Europe, Latin America, so on and so forth, it doesn't show up as a shortage of women over there. What it shows up as is a form of displacement by wealth. So, in other words, the more educated and financially sound a man is, the more dateable he becomes. You see, and why is that so? Well, it goes back to there are more men on the planet than there are women right now. So, men who are more ambitious and wealthier will travel to a place, and they have the means to do so, where they can find women when there is a shortage of women in their own land for them to date. So that speaks to what I need to tell you about. Now, listen, education helps everyone, but it is the necessary component that boys and men need to have in order to rise up from ignorance. Okay? So an uneducated woman is a tragedy nonetheless. And I say that with respect and empathy. I think education is a human right. So, but boys and men need it. And as I said before, it's a tragedy when a woman doesn't have it. However, and you'll see where I'm coming from, by comparison, when we look at what the lack of education does to either gender, okay, you compare what it does to men versus women. By comparison, the ranks of terrorist organizations, either domestically or abroad throughout the world, are swelling with dim-witted mooks, boys and men. They are not swelling with uneducated women. And certainly they are not swelling with college-educated professionals or tradesmen. You understand? So everybody needs education. Absolutely. Everyone needs to have it. Women and men alike, girls and boys alike. But the effect of a boy not being properly educated and growing up to become a man who's a dim-witted mook, it can be deadly for everyone, is where I'm coming from, okay? So if you want to be considered attractive, you need to definitely obtain an education of some sort, okay? And also, if you are a heterosexual and exclusively monogamous man, just know that the competition is high. It's going to be high. There's nothing that's going to change that. However, if you are here in the U.S., then you have the opportunity to gain what you need in order to be able to measure up. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, because nothing worth having is easy to obtain. But it's not impossible unless you make it so, okay? Now, what I'm about to say is for those that what I'm about to say applies to. So if it doesn't apply to you, then it was not meant for you, okay? And that is for those who are not heterosexual. And listen, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to be heterosexual. You can live your truth. And what I'm here to say is now is a time more than ever to live your truth fully. Non-heterosexual men need to stop feeling the pressure to engage into intimacy with women, especially when they are not attracted to us. This is the pressure that toxic patriarchy places onto the shoulders of men, not the overall collective of women. We're not here pressuring you to marry us just because you are male and we were born female. That's not the case. It is the pressure of patriarchy that's pushing you to achieve a certain status, and that certain status appears like a man who has a child, has a wife or a girlfriend or something like that. If you are not attracted to us, listen, as a full-blooded woman, I'm telling you, you don't have to be with us. We want you to live your truth. We women don't want a man who is hiding his true orientation. just so that he can appear normal in front of his family and friends. That's not what we're here for. We don't want to be beards. We don't want anybody hiding in the closet. You don't have to do that for us. So come out of your closet and be free and date the men that you want to date and who also want you. You deserve to be happy. And if it's without a woman, we are perfectly okay with that. Trust me. There is absolutely no need to be deceptive. And by doing so, placing a woman's life at risk and even the baby she may be carrying to give birth to your children, especially when you don't even like women. And this is especially true if we're talking about Blackistan. A lot of the males don't even want their children, will not provide for them. So the burden is on the woman and the society to feed, clothe, and shelter them. So in any case, the global shortage of women and the reversal of Roe versus Wade, by the way, has created a larger magnifying glass for women to use on men who are interested in dating them. So regardless of if you're interested in women or you're interested in Pup Sheen, and Pup Sheen is an interesting character, and if you're at work, don't Google it. This is not safe for work. Don't Google Pup Sheen, okay? So regardless of if you're interested in women or interested in Pup Sheen, you have to be attractive in order to attract. So that's all I have to say for now. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so that you'll know whenever I upload any new content. Take care until next time.